That's just salt. I'm making a little aloo gobi tonight. Not 100% authentic recipe, but cauliflower and potatoes are cheap this week, so it sounded good to me. I don't bother to peel my potatoes because I gain nothing from taking the skins off. They're nice and clean. They tell me that there's extra vitamins in the skins, so no point in wasting time, at least not in this case. I like the texture. I have, as you can see, chopped out some of the little wonky bits, though. A lot of people would cook the potatoes in the aloo gobi the whole way, and you can certainly do that, but I've always had better luck just by doing a very quick blanch on mine, which is what I'm going to do, maybe 3 minutes in boiling salted water. I do the same thing on my cauliflower. It just kind of speeds things up a little bit, but not necessary. Just a little mince on the garlic. I've got a whole bunch of interesting spices to go into this. Only thing is I'm missing one of the main ingredients. Normally I'd put in a nice big wad of fresh ginger, but I went to the ginger pot and I was out. So I'm going to fake it. I'm going to use a little bit of fennel, a little bit of clove. It'll work out at the end. I think I got my clock fixed. I opened it up and fidgeted around with it, but if it stops, you'll know that I didn't do a good job. Cauliflower, I like my cauliflower in nice big pieces. I cut through the stem to try to keep as much of the head, the top intact. But do not throw away that stalk. It's nice and flavorful, plenty of texture, so don't let it go to waste. Throw it in the mix. Same thing I do for making cauliflower cheese. You make a quick cheese sauce. Same idea. I'm trying to figure out how much cauliflower I want tonight. I think. Oh, getting away from me. Cauliflower was super cheap this week. It was $1 for a head from our local growers, which is awesome. I don't know if you guys watched the stories a few years ago in the news. I can't remember if it was the weather or what, but cauliflower was something like $4.50, $5 a head up here. I think it was in the middle of winter. There was some kind of a supply shortage from afar, so about equal portions. This will become lunch tomorrow. And for spices, I have some mustard seeds, and I'm going to toast those in oil in the pan first. So I don't want to mix in my other spices yet. That's coming up to temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in my potatoes. Like I say, just going to give them a couple minutes blanch. Won't be fully cooked at all. I want to finish cooking them in the pan in the sauce that I make. But we can go ahead and get them started. Should probably find a lid. I think this one fits. Aha, it does. It's even glass, so you can, well, you can't see through it because of the steam. But the other whole spices I can go ahead and toast too, and in mine I'm going to use a little tiny bit of fennel and a good bit of cumin seed, jeera as it's called a lot of times, and I'm going to do some chilies and turmeric and what else? Chilies, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, clove. But those I am not going to toast. I want those to be a whole, little bit of black peppercorn as well. And I got to find my clove. I'm not going to do many cloves because they can overpower. But let's say I'm kind of faking ginger. I'm going to use 3 cloves in the mix. But those are going to get ground down with the other spices. Let's see here. I'm rattling around. This is my coffee grinder. Left over from last night's cardamom cookies. There's a little bit of sugar in there, but that's not going to hurt anything. And some fresh chilies, or some, excuse me, some dried chilies. If I had a fresh chili, I'd throw that in there too, but I don't. So that's going to be enough there. And cinnamon and turmeric, which do not need to be toasted. And a little bit of black peppercorn. People say, why do you use black peppercorn and chilies? It's because they're different. There's 2 different kinds of heat going on there, and 2 different kinds of flavor, more importantly. So, but that mix is going to get browned. Just show you guys here. I just use a little electric coffee mill. That'll be nice in there. Mix that in with the turmeric. Pretty good dose of turmeric here. And a pretty decent dose of cinnamon. Maybe not quite that much. There we go. But again, I kept the whole spices that I want to toast separate from my ground spices. Boiling away, won't be long. I'm going to strain them once they've simmered enough. that is about all I want to do for cooking the potatoes ahead of time. Just basically takes the edge off of the cooking time for them. If I can fish them all out there. And then again, in that same simmering salted water, I'm going to go in with the cauliflower very briefly. If I was thinking ahead, I would have made some naan or flatbread to go with this, but I wasn't. So I'll probably just throw some rice in the rice cooker as a side starch. Not that you really need more starch with these potatoes in there, but I'll make it extra saucy, so there'll be lots of sauce to go around. Where are my blanched potatoes? Just waiting for their cauliflower partners. I need some oil. I just use ordinary vegetable oil. Some people would use more exotic oils. I've even seen mustard seed oil used for this, but it's not necessary. I'm going to toast those mustard seeds all on their own. That'll get more than enough flavor in there. Going to need a little bit of onion for this. Barely an Indian dish I know that doesn't start with at least some onion in it. That's enough. What is that? A small onion or half of a medium onion, something like that. Some people would put tomatoes in. I'm not a big fan of that in this particular case. Maybe a little tomato paste, a squirt of tomato paste might be nice, but I don't want to put in a whole tin of tomatoes. It's not like I'm making tikka masala or anything. And you could really go all kinds of different crazy directions with the sauce. It doesn't have to be traditional. You could do everything from tamarind to coconut milk if you wanted to add something really different to it. Let's call this Aloo Gobi inspired as opposed to actual Aloo Gobi. Give this just a little bit farther grind. One thing I am going to do is grab a little bit of yogurt. I like to slip a little plain yogurt in. It just kind of adds a creaminess to the sauce. I don't know if that's traditional or not, but it tastes good. So plain yogurt, not vanilla or anything along those lines. We have a really good brand up here that isn't particularly expensive, and it's made with whole milk, so I'm pleased using that instead of making my own most days. I think that's about all I want to do for cooking on the cauliflower. Strain this out. Try not to drop it everywhere. See, I just taken the edge off of the cooking, basically. Not trying to cook it all the way through at all. Get this out of the way. But I am saving that cooking water because I might want a little of it to thin the sauce here in a bit. Starchy and salty and flavorful, no reason not to use that instead of plain water. Yeah, good stock. I've got stock that I could use as well, but use what you got, right? So get onto the heat with my big pan. I have to be careful in this. This is a real heavy cast iron pan. I have to be careful in this because the heat, it's like flying a hot air balloon. The heat comes a couple minutes after you hit the burner, basically. So I don't want it to get too hot, especially when I'm frying those spices and the garlic. I don't want to burn the garlic. So I'm going to let that heat for a good while just to levelize the temperature before I throw anything that could scorch in. And look, my clock is actually working for a change. Almost 10 o'clock here in Eastern Canada. I'm an hour ahead of New York for you folks down in America. So if you're on the East Coast, it's just about dinner time. Excuse me, on the West Coast. You know where I mean, out on the other side of the continent. We're getting there. I'm going to go ahead and put in some oil. It's a fairly good amount of oil in this, but you need it. Go in with my whole seeds, and I really want to keep them moving because burnt spices are not a good thing. And I want to toast them. The mustard seeds will start to pop a little bit, but what I'm really aiming for is I want to smell them. I want to smell that those seeds have started to really release their flavor. I can already tell they're starting to pop on me, so on with my splatter screen. You hear that? Yeah, they're going to town. That's perfect. Enough that I want to pull off the heat just a little so they don't go nuts. Let's say that cast iron pan of mine is, it really holds on to the heat, so I don't want to go overboard there, but now I can go ahead and get in my garlic and onions. The moisture from that will help prevent anything from burning. Calm things down a little bit. And go back on to a pretty low temperature. Be just a tiny little bit more oil over here in the corner so that I can go in with the rest of my spices. Spices being usually oil soluble. That's what I'm after there. I can already smell that cardamom especially. That's nice. Ginger coming up, you can smell that too. You know, I think half of Indian cooking is knowing what to smell for rather than what to look for. And even without ginger, it smells a little gingery because of that fennel clove trick. We're there. All right, so now I can go in with the veg. Come back with a little bit of my cooking water here. Not like so. I'm sure there are many more authentic recipes for proper aloo gobi out there. This is just what I had laying around the house tonight. So no hate mail, please, because I didn't include amchur or methi or asafoetida or any of those things. It will still taste good. That's the main thing. If I can keep it in the pan. That turmeric's going to leave a stain. Now, I'm going to save the yogurt for the end. This needs just a little bit more liquid. And now I got to find my lid. I want to hold in that heat and let that simmer away. And something else that I've always done is just a tiny little splash of vinegar. If you don't have lemon or lime juice handy, either one of those would work too. But just a little splash of vinegar because it just adds a little bit of acidity to what could otherwise be kind of a mundane plate with all the cauliflower and potato in there. I think in the end I am going to add just a tiny little bit of tomato paste. Just gives me a little bit more depth of flavor and a little bit of color. But it's not like dumping in a big can of tomatoes, eh? 2 good spoonfuls of tomato paste. And a little bit more of that cooking water. Get this worked into the fold. Jeez, why does that potato keep jumping out at me? I could almost have fit that whole head of cauliflower in there, eh? All right, so enough moisture. Gonna let that simmer and do its thing. And you guys don't need to see that for 40 minutes, so I'm gonna turn off the stream. I'll come back and show you what it looks like here at the end.